Hello, and our next author is going to be Patricia K. Baldwin Dennis. She is another of the co-authors in the Fiercely Speaking anthology with visionary author Audra Lowray Upchurch. So Patricia is going to come on and she's going to tell us a little bit about her chapter and the name of her chapter and give us a little bit about her chapter. So Patricia, introduce yourself to the readers and let them know the name of your chapter and what your chapter is all about.
Hello, I'm Patricia K. Baldwin Dennis. The name of my chapter is Don't Worry, You Can Always Have Another One. And my chapter revolves around my issues with unresolved grief as a result of multiple miscarriages. Never having time to grieve, well, not even really knowing how to grieve, and not being given time to grieve before having to jump back into the workforce. People not knowing how to acknowledge my miscarriages and just ignoring the fact that they ever happened. So my chapter revolves around those issues and how I was able to come to terms with that with my coworkers as well as with my family members.
Oh, wow. That's a very deeply personal story. And that should be an interesting read to understand what you went through and how you processed through that emotionally. What made you decide to tell your story?
Well, I felt that it was time. I keep seeing women and meeting women different places, and the subject will come up, or I see the subject on Facebook, and these women, they're suffering. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't have anybody to talk to. And most women going through this, they feel like they're going through it by themselves. They feel like they're the only one. And I feel it's important for people to know that it's more common than you think that it is, and the importance of speaking out about it, because speaking out is what helps us heal.
Yeah, and I think that like there's a theme through all of the author's story in this Fiercely Speaking anthology about talking about that thing that hurt you or that thing that impacted you. And a lot of you guys are talking about how healing it was to just begin to talk about it. So as you were writing your chapter, what surprised you about yourself? What did you learn about yourself, and what surprised you about going through this process?
Well, what surprised me most was that even though the first miscarriage happened more than 20 years ago, I found that I was still hurting behind that, even though I thought I had dealt with it mostly. I felt that there was still pain behind it, and it just showed me how people don't know how to talk to you about it, so it made it important to me to teach other people how to approach someone who's been through this.
And so in writing the chapter, what do you hope your readers are going to get out of it?
I hope they see the importance of speaking up about what's going on with you, the importance of and including the partner who also is grieving the miscarriage in the process of healing, and the importance of telling people what you want and what you need, instead of if somebody's saying something that is hurting you, because a lot of people will say things that are hurtful, but they think that they're saying something helpful. The importance of letting that person know right then that, hey, what you said, that was hurtful, and can you do this or say this instead? And that way you help people help you. And that's just so important.
Was this your first anthology?
Yes, it is.
And what did you think about the process of writing the anthology?
It's been a struggle because it made me think about things that I didn't want to think about. That was the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. And what about the process of becoming an author and hopefully, knock on wood, a best-selling author?
Well, that part was exciting and in itself. So really, it's just a part. It's just more like being, of course, the cringe of having to actually write things and face them, but then the excitement of seeing the book come to fruition, meeting all the other ladies in the anthology, and seeing that also, even though I went through this type of struggle, they've gone through struggles too, and seeing that all of the struggles, in the end, there's a similarity with all of the ladies. And I just love the whole process.
Oh my God. So I was one of the co-authors in the very first anthology, Unchained Me Mama. And I wrote my chapter and, everything was good. But I really thought I was the only one that had mama trauma, right? And
Yeah.
when I met the other co-authors, and I was like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one that have, trauma in my childhood that is impacting me. And then I was listening to some of the other ladies and their trauma, and it made me feel not so alone anymore.
Right.
So
it's kind of comforting in a way to know that you're not alone.
yeah, it was like a sisterhood was formed with the other authors. It was like they shared in my journey and I shared in their journey. So that was one of the benefits for me of going through that anthology, and one of the things that I got out of the anthology.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So tell your readers how they can get in touch with you.
Readers can get in touch with me through my email address, which is patriciakdennis@gmail.com.
Okay.
That's the only email I have right now.
And is your Patricia spelled in the traditional way?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And you don't have to capitalize anything. You just spell it all lowercase if you like.
And Dennis too, with two N's.
Dennis with two N's.
Dennis with two N's.
Correct.
Very good. Do you have any parting remarks for your readers?
I just want people to read my chapter and get your takeaway on it, and to know that you are not alone, and to take to heart all of the things that I give as tips for how people can help you, and don't just use them for yourself. Use them for other people, because you'll be surprised how many people you see who are going through some type of grief, because grief is not just a miscarriage or just a death. It's any loss that affects you in a really severe way. So if you see someone who's grieving, then you can use any tip that I provide in the book to help that person go through what they're going through.
And to understand the grieving process that you may be going through.
That's
if you're
correct.
grieving some type of loss. Very good. Thank you so much, Patricia. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I appreciate you sharing your Sunday afternoon with me and allowing me to interview you. I wish you all the best with your chapter and with your book sales. And here's to #1 bestseller, right? As you guys begin to have your book launch and everything like that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Dr. Paula Langford. Dr. Paula is another one of the co-authors in the anthology, Fiercely Speaking, with the visionary author of Audra Lorraine Upchurch. Dr. Paula, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead and introduce yourself to your readers and tell us the name of your chapter and what your chapter is all about.
So my name is Dr. Paula Langford, and I had the wonderful opportunity to write in the anthology Fiercely Speaking. My chapter is entitled All My Life I've Had to Fight. And my chapter is really about the various times I've had to fight for a voice because my voice had been stifled, either by abuse or even gender bias. So I do talk a little bit about gender bias in the Catholic Church and what that means for me as an African American Catholic female.
Oh, okay. Okay, that sounds interesting. All my life I had to fight.
All my life.
So, what made you decide to tell your story now, Dr. Paula?
This is actually my second time telling the story. I think I really expanded on the story because I realized in writing in the first anthology that I did last year that there was so much more that hindered me from being the best me. And part of that was not just not my faith, but my faith tradition. And so that's what made me decide to write. And I got courage in writing the first time that I could write, and I felt really good about it. So I said, okay, let me do this one more time, just to somewhat solidify the fact that I have the capability.
And what was your family's reaction to you becoming an author, writing your story, airing your dirty laundry? Like, what was your family's reaction to that?
Because both my parents are social workers and I'm a social worker, they understood. They were very supportive. Now, I don't know how my church members are going to feel about it because, in Catholicism, we're very traditional. Men have their roles, women have their roles. And I think as a Black Catholic, I think that may cause some of our leadership to kind of cringe because I am talking about how they are stifling the voice of not just women, but Black women in particular. And so you could get so much more if you would not do that and allow us to be who we are and who God has called us to be.
Yeah, and that's funny because other than, family of origin issues, I think church hurt is number two. And the hurt that people experience, and that's especially as you're trying to pursue your faith and get to know God and get to know your place in the religion or get to know your place in your faith, and to have your voice stifled or not to be heard or not to be addressed or not to be valued. I think a lot of people go through that. So there's a lot of people that's going to get a lot out of your chapter.
Absolutely. I mean, Teresa, the thing is, when you rely on your faith and your faith tradition, and you are told that God has created you in his image, but yet you're also told that your gender prohibits you from doing something, that impacts your life outside of the church, right? Your relationships. And as opposed to calling it church hurt, I think it's deeper than that. It's trauma. It's really religious trauma. And religious trauma syndrome really needs to be addressed in our communities because that's how we get the best out of people when they are whole and healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and financially.
Yeah. So now this was not your first anthology, so you kind of understood the process. But did you learn anything new about yourself as you were writing this expanded edition of your chapter?
I learned that I was angry at my community, my church community. I learned that, and my anger comes out in sarcasm, and that my anger comes out in pulling back. So at some point in time in writing the chapter, I refused to even pay my tithes because I thought, oh yeah, money speaks, right? That's how we keep lights on. That's how we keep the heat on. But then I realized I'm not taking from the church building, I'm taking from my community. So I made sure that, I continued my tithing, my giving, and I had to protect myself by stepping back a little bit from different ministries. But I am a faithful Catholic. I am a faithful Black Catholic, and I do God's will and God's work the way that I'm called to do it and the way I see it.
What messages what messages are you giving your readers, and what do you hope for them to get out of your chapter?
The message that I'm giving to my reader is that while we have experienced religious trauma, there is a way out. And that God is really calling us, God of our understanding. It may not be my God, it's the reader's God. That God is calling us to be healed in so many different aspects of our life because we have a voice. And we are the modern day prophets that need to have our voices heard. And in order to do that, you have to be healthy, you have to be whole, but you also have to make sure that you are not led by the human voice leadership that is, but that what is the Spirit telling you to do. And so I hope that my readers really get an understanding that they have a voice, their voice is important, and their voice must be heard, especially women.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's like, I can tell that you have a very special relationship with God yourself. I know that from my experience, the more I grew in relationship with God, the more freedom I got and the more freedom I afforded others. And I like what you said about a God of the reader's understanding, because sometimes we want to, and I think that God deals with all of his children individually, just like parents do, right? And my relationship with God and the things that he is leading me and guiding me through is not going to be the same as what he's leading you and guiding you through. So I can't say to you, you need to have your relationship like this. That wouldn't be true to you. And I think that a lot of times that's how our voice is stifled, because they're not allowing us to have our own individual relationship with God.
Absolutely.
So I can tell that you have your own individual relationship with God, because if he is nothing, God is a God of love, and love covers a multitude of sin, right? And the whole purpose of entering into this relationship with him is like when you give your life to him, you gain your life, and that's where the freedom comes in. Look at me, I'm trying to preach. I ain't trying to preach. I promise I ain't trying to preach. Okay, so tell your readers how they can get in touch with you.
Sure, they can reach me at the Healing Institute of Baltimore on Facebook, Heal Balt, that's HEALBALT@gmail.com.
Very good. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday afternoon with us and allowing me to interview you. Do you have any parting remarks for your readers?
The only thing I want my readers to know is that they have a voice, and I'm waiting to hear their voice too.
Amen. Amen. Well, Dr. Paula Langford, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me, and good luck with your chapter and with your book sales. You know, #1 best-selling author, here we come. I am looking forward to reading the book and reading all of the chapters of all of the authors. And yeah, I appreciate you. I really do appreciate you. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you later.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.